immersed.
Alright, hello everyone, welcome to the channel if you're new, and for those of you returning, welcome back. Thank you for actually sticking around. I greatly appreciate that, by the way. This is a continuation of one of my previous videos, my favorite game on Roblox, and I'm just going to be covering the rest of the monsters that I didn't cover in that video. And honestly, a lot of these were surprising to me. I did not expect to enjoy some of these as much as I did. Gold EXE is still coming, probably pretty soon actually, and when I say pretty soon, I mean pretty soon for my upload schedule, so probably like a week or two. And I'll probably either do like Forest King or Aoni Gold next, because I really enjoy playing Aoni and Forest King. Anyways, enough of my yapping, let's get into the video, starting with Rosemary. Alright, now Rosemary is one of the two starting monsters right next to Vapor. She costs nothing and you get her for free the second you start the game. Now, I'm not gonna tell you she's bad by any means, but she is definitely lacking compared to like every other monster in the game. So she's bad. Now, everyone knows Rosemary is a pretty bad monster, but like what makes her so bad? Well, to start with, she has very little stamina. I think she is tied for lowest in the game. Actually, no, I think Niloticus has lower stamina. But on top of her very low stamina, her stamina drain is incredibly fast and her stamina regen is incredibly slow. Just not a good combo all around. Now you might be thinking that, you know, she's faster than the player by quite a bit. Maybe her stamina doesn't matter. And that's just the furthest possible thing from the truth. While she might have the second fastest sprint speed in the game, her lack of stamina will make it almost impossible to catch up to any competent player in a chase unless you are chasing them for the entire game. Now for her attack, she has a relatively small hitbox, at least that's what it feels like when I'm playing her, and she does, I think, 25 damage, making her a 4-shot. So all of her stats aren't the greatest, so automatically you might assume that she's a bad monster. But then when we get to her abilities, they're even worse. Starting off, we have Demonic Shriek, which will hold Rosemary in place for a few seconds, make her scream, and everyone near her will be blinded a bit, and will also have increased stamina drain for a short duration. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you and say this ability is useless like a lot of other people, but it is by no means good. Sure, it can definitely help, but it's just not good compared to any other ability in the game. Now moving on to her second ability, Echolocation. It's basically just a generic ESP ability. It lets you see through walls, you can't run or attack during it. It's basically just worse Oni Vision. Whereas Oni Vision will regen a lot of your stamina and allow you to attack and run during it, at least for our Oni. I know Fuwatti's is a little different. Echolocation makes you walk and you can't attack during it. And I do believe it regens a small amount of stamina, but it's not nearly enough to warrant having to stay still for a bit. Now, as I said before, I don't think Rosemary is a horrible monster. I don't think there's a single monster in this game that could be considered horrible, because you can lobby wipe with any monster if you just have enough skill, but Rosemary is 100% the hardest monster to get kills with. Anyways, on to the next monster, the other starter monster, and the better one, Vapor. Vapor, the one everyone likes to complain about, despite the fact that he's really not that good. Starting with his base stats, he does 75 damage, which is pretty good, and that might sound like a lot until you hear that he is the slowest monster in the game, or at least tied for it. He has a sprint speed of 18, 100 stamina, and not the best stamina regen. He is incredibly slow, incredibly easy to outrun, and if you die to a Vapor, honestly, that's on you. You weren't paying attention. Vapor makes incredibly loud noises if he's near you, so make sure you are paying attention and playing with your audio on, otherwise when you're playing against Vapor, probably screwed, honestly. If he gets close to you and hits you, GG. I believe he has the second biggest hitbox in the game, only being beaten by Whist, I believe, but it's really big. It reaches pretty far behind him, so juking, you should probably avoid trying to do that unless it is absolutely necessary. Now, enough about his base stats, let's talk about his abilities. His abilities, while they might not be the best, they are pretty good, especially for a free monster. Starting off, we have Demonic Shift. Vapor will occasionally leave an orb around, and he can teleport back to that by pressing 1 at any time. The orb will also mark players who are near it, so you can use that to your advantage. Demonic Shift has a few other neat abilities, like if you pair it with Spider Skulls, you can teleport to someone if they destroy it, I believe. I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me on that. I know it's either you can teleport to them if they destroy the spider, or if they didn't destroy the spider fast enough. I'm just not sure which one it is. But that is a great ability for catching up to players, especially those who actually know what they're doing. It can be really good if you waste a lot of their stamina, regain yours, and then teleport to them, because then they won't have any stamina to actually outrun you. It's pretty good if you know what you're doing. That being said, I do not know what I'm doing, so my Vapor gameplay does not reflect that at all. Alright, now his second ability, Spider Skull summons, well, a Spider Skull. Attacks players by following them around, does about 9 damage per tick, and if paired with a single M1, it will put them in Bone Break. It's pretty good. As I mentioned before, you can teleport to players if they don't break it in time, and you can also only have 2 of these active at a time. So, unfortunately, you can't have an entire army of Spider Skulls. And it is also a pretty good tool for just putting pressures on players who are further away from you. Alright, that's all my thoughts on Vapor. Not the best, definitely not bad though. But anyways, on to the next monster.
Okay, there he is. He doesn't think to check the cupboard.
Okay, Ao-Oni. I was really not expecting to enjoy playing Ao-Oni as much as I did, but he is incredibly fun. And not only that, he is also probably the most underrated monster in the game, if I'm just being completely honest. I honestly believe he might be the best monster for chases. Starting off, he has near identical speed to the player in his Oni form, 100 stamina, very slow stamina drain, basically identical stats to the player. He does 40 damage, which is really good, especially for a monster with this good of movement, and that damage can be increased further with one of his abilities. I'll be talking about that in a little bit. Now, his first ability, Oni Vision, it's an ESP ability. Lets you see through walls for a little bit, but that's not even the best use for it. Obviously, you can use it to find people, and that's great, but you can also use it in a chase to regain a bunch of your stamina, which will just help you chase people. It's damn near impossible to win a chase against an Oni with this ability. So on top of the Oni's insane base stats, you can just use this ability, get like half your stamina back, and easily outrun people. Honestly, it's kind of broken, but you know, I'm not complaining, because nobody uses Ao-Oni for some reason. Alright, now his second ability, and his main ability, Shapeshift. I'm just gonna assume you can guess what this ability does. It turns you into a player of your choice, and its intended use is for stealth, obviously, to pretend to be a player. But, once again, its best use is for a chase. Because if you're shapeshifted, you're the same speed as the player, you have the same stamina drain as the player, and the same stamina. You have identical stats to the player. So you can just use shapeshift to wear down the person's stamina, de-transform if you're close, maybe you get a hit off, and even if you don't, you can just use Oni Vision, adds the Oni, and get your stamina back. It's ridiculous. And another neat thing about Shapeshift is that you actually do extra damage if you hit someone while you're transformed. For example, the base damage is 40, and I believe it does 50 if you hit someone while shapeshifted, making it a 3-shot instead of a 4-shot. Very helpful. Alright, but now that we've covered his moveset and his stats, let's talk about the actual Oni himself. Ao-Oni is from, well, Ao-Oni, the game. I'm sure most of you know what that is, and if you don't, just go watch like a YouTube series on it or something. It's a pretty cool game. I personally would recommend Corey Kenshin's series. Now currently, the Oni is near identical to the actual Ao-Oni in the game, appearance-wise I mean. And I say currently because he is planned to get a rework in his design due to copyright issues. I'll put that up on screen right now. Now personally, I don't mind the new design. I do think the old one is better, but there's not much that can be done, so. There's also a few neat references in his mastery skins. For example, his gold one, I believe, is a reference to the main character. Actually, no, the diamond one is a reference to the main character of the Ao Oni games that you play as. And the silver one is also a reference. I can't place my finger on it right now. I'll put who it's a reference to on screen, though. I know it's one of the characters. These skins are also references to the fact that the Oni maintains the hairstyle of whoever he was transformed into after he detransforms. So, yeah, that's pretty neat. But anyways, I have gone on about Ao Oni for way too long, so let's just get on to the next monster. Okay, Fuwatti, or the Blockman Oni, whatever you want to call him. He's pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. The first time I played this monster, when he came out, I thought he was kind of bad, but that's just because I wasn't playing him right. I tried using Silly Rush like I would Charging Demise, and it just did not work out at all. I think Charging Demise is a lot better for following up after a hit, and on the other hand, we have Silly Rush. Sure, it can be used to follow up on a hit, but it's not going to work most of the time because it's fairly easy to dodge due to the hitbox being pretty small. Or at least it's pretty small when you're playing Fuwatti. When I'm playing Survivor, I can just get hit by Silly Rush from kilometers away. It's kind of weird. Now, Fuwatti's stats are basically just a worse version of the Onis. He has 1 less sprint speed, being 21. He has 95 stamina instead of 100, and he does 35 damage instead of 40. However, his abilities and the fact that he lunges forwards when he attacks makes up for the little shortcomings he has, honestly. Now, that might seem kind of broken, you know, he lunges forwards when he attacks, like, that seems like it would make it really easy to get hit in a chase, and while you are right, him attacking also takes stamina, so you have to actually be sure that it's gonna hit. You can't just spam it or you're gonna run out of stamina. Alright, now his abilities are also pretty good. He has Silly Rush, which is basically kind of like Charging Demise, except not really. It makes Fuwatti run in a straight line, and if he makes contact with someone, he does 80 damage, which is an instant bone break. It's pretty crazy. Now this move is a lot harder to hit than it would seem, because despite the short startup, it is for some reason really easy to dodge. The hitbox is tiny, and you can only hit one person with it, so if there's 2 people, you're only hitting one. And it also works similarly to Charging Demise in the sense that if you run into a wall, you will get stunned for a minute, except you don't regain a bunch of stamina when you run into a wall with Silly Rush. So Silly Rush in general is kind of just a worse Charging Demise, but it can be better in its own ways. It just depends on your playstyle, really. Now, onto his second ability, Oni Vision. It's basically the same thing as Ao Oni's Oni Vision, with a few minor differences. The main one being, you can't attack during Fuwatti's Oni Vision. Now, don't get me wrong, it is still incredibly good for chases, as it regains some of your stamina, but it's not as good as the regular Oni Vision, you know, because you can't attack. Now, that might be a negative for some people, but it doesn't really bother me, because it's still really easy to kill people with Fuwatti. And he's very fun to play, I'll give him that. He's not my favorite by any means, but playing him is pretty satisfying to get a kill with, especially when you hit Silly Rush. Now for Fuwatti himself, he is also from Ao Oni, the game. I'm sure you could guess that though. And now I'm not really an expert on the lore of the Ao Oni games, but from what I know, Fuwatti is supposedly a child that Ao Oni killed or something, and he was transformed into Fuwatti. And that's kind of the whole reason that, you know, he's not very accurate with his attacks, and he's supposed to be kind of dumb, because he's a child. Now, earlier, I got Ao Oni's gold skin mixed up with Fuwatti's diamond skin, and Fuwatti's diamond skin is a reference to another character from Ao Oni named Mika. But anyways, I don't really have much else to say about him, kind of said everything I can, and I don't want to drag out this video as long as I can, so let's go to the next monster. The Forest King, also known as Coronation Day Peach, is a character originating from the Super Mario World ROM hack / creepypasta known as apostrophe the, or Coronation Day. Now, why is it called apostrophe the? No clue. However, its alternate name, Coronation Day, may have some meaning that relates to the name the Forest King. Coronation Day, by definition, is the day of which a ruler is crowned. Or in simpler terms, basically, think of a king, and on this day, he would be officially recognized as the king of whatever he's ruling. Now, in the game, Coronation Day Peach is never explicitly stated to be the king of the forest, but rather the god of the forest. So the whole Coronation Day and Forest King thing could just be a coincidence, but I don't know. So, now as for the actual ROM hack itself, you play as Mario walking through a forest. Eventually, as you go on, you'll start to see weird glitches, visual effects, and occasionally some messages that will pop up. Now, these messages are usually quite cryptic, so I'm not really sure what most of them mean. However, there are a few that just tell us some information about the Forest King. The easiest one to understand is this message that tells us that his favorite color is red. So, do with that information what you will, I guess. Now, you may have noticed me calling the Forest King a him, and that is actually correct. This is because, despite the fact that he looks like Princess Peach, he is actually a demon possessing Princess Peach. We don't know the name of this demon, as he is only referred to as him and he. Now, that's about the extent of my knowledge on Coronation Day, and it is a very interesting creepypasta. I would recommend watching Hey Peter's video on the game, if you are interested in learning more about the creepypasta. Alright, now that I've talked about who Coronation Day Peach is, let's talk about the Forest King and his abilities. Now at first, the Forest King's stats might not seem that great. 20 sprint speed, 100 stamina, and 25 damage, or 40 if you aren't running. But his abilities more than make up for this. To start with, we have Glitching Blitz, which is a projectile that can go through walls, and I believe it has an unlimited travel distance. If you hit a player with this, they will periodically take damage as well as have a static effect cover their screen. This is a great tool for zoning players, and you can whittle someone's health down from across the map if you have good enough aim. His next ability, Lurking Facade, is kind of like a better Spider Skull. It doesn't do damage to players, but if it hits them, it will trap them for about 2.5 seconds, as well as giving you a massive speed boost. These floating heads will also mark any players who are near them, and if a player is being chased by a head, their screen will turn red, and text saying him will appear on it. This is a reference to Coronation Day. Now, this is a very strong kit. His ability to attack players from range, good stamina, good speed, and damn near constant ESP makes him unbeatable on certain maps like Fazbear Frights. Despite this very strong kit, if you know what you're doing, you can counter Forest King relatively easily, albeit it is a bit hard to do sometimes. Usually, this is the part where I would say, on to the next monster or something like that, but I actually got some cool Double Trouble gameplay for once. Forest King and MX is a pretty cool duo, so I'm just gonna let this play out, because I think that's cool. I'll put a timestamp on screen if you want to skip to the next monster.
It's time to have some fun with Uncle Samsonite.
Uncle Samsonite. I'm gonna be completely honest, I have absolutely no clue where to begin with this guy. He originates from the series under the same name, Uncle Samsonite, and he is some kind of eldritch deity that, like, kidnaps kids and makes them drink name brand soda or something. I don't fucking know.
We're going to do all sorts of slumber party activities, such as watching movies, drinking copious amounts of Mountain Dew, and playing video games.
No. The real Jake would never drink Mountain Dew. This is an off-brand soda household.
I watched the series, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed it, albeit I was very confused 90% of the time. The whole plot is that the main character's son gets kidnapped by Uncle Samsonite, and he has to save him. I can't really describe it, you just gotta watch it for yourself. Now, two key things that I did pick up on are that Uncle Samsonite has two weaknesses. One, if a beat is good enough, he has to have a dance-off with someone, no matter what, and that's used for stalling him. And two, his other weakness is off-brand soda. I don't know why. It is, though. Now, in the series, Uncle Samsonite is depicted in a book with a candle on his head and a big grin, and that is actually the inspiration for the diamond skin. There's also the green one skin, which is both a reference to Shrek and Uncle Samsonite at the same time. The newest episode of Uncle Samsonite currently is called The Green One, and that's where the skin came from. Now, onto his stats. He has a sprint speed of 19, which is the second lowest in the game, a stamina of 100, which is pretty standard, honestly, and he does 50 damage. Honestly, these stats are pretty good, especially for how good his abilities are, so I don't mind them. Now, Uncle Samsonite has the most abilities of any monster in the game, having 3, and technically having 2 passives. Now, his first ability, it's not really an ability. You can press F to dance. It does nothing, it just serves as a taunt. Now, his first move is called Beat Laydown. It's a revised version of Dance Off, which is his old ability, and if you're near Uncle Samsonite when he's using it, your dance meter will fill up. Uncle Samsonite runs while doing this, so he's very fast. The best counter for this is to just stay as far away from Uncle Samsonite as you possibly can. He has really loud footsteps, so if you hear them, just start running away. Alright, and his first passive is called the Dance Meter. It's just a bar at the bottom of the screen. Some moves affect it by making it go up. M1's Beat Laydown and Uncle's Wrath will all make the dance bar fill up. If the dance bar reaches maximum, you will start dancing for like 8 seconds or so, allowing Uncle Samsonite to either hit you or take you to his domain. Speaking of which, his second passive is taking people to his domain. You can do this when someone's dancing by holding E on them. When you take someone to your domain, a few seconds get added to the timer. As for the domain itself, it's basically just a bunch of doors. The player will have to find the correct door to escape, and if they don't, Uncle Samsonite will be able to kill them. Now for his second move, Uncle's Wrath. Uncle Samsonite will momentarily stop and stomp on the floor. This will send out a large shockwave, and if anybody's caught in it, they will be halted from sprinting for a few seconds, as well as having their dance meter fill up by about 80%. If you get lucky, and you can hit this move at close range, you can utilize the fact that they can't sprint for a few seconds to go hit them once, then use Beat Laydown, get them dancing, hit them again, and get a pretty easy instant kill. Now his third ability is called Domain Traversal. It simply takes him to his domain and adds a few seconds to the timer. Oh yeah, and I should also mention that when in the domain, Uncle Samsonite doesn't use stamina, and he uses a floating animation instead of his regular walk.
The Mimic. The Mimic is a bipedal creature with uncanny similarities to humanoid anatomy. They greatly resemble humans without skin.
Without an
The Vita Mimic. I both love and absolutely despise this monster. For one, it is incredibly overpowered, and anyone who says otherwise is straight lying. This monster is broken and you know it. And on the other hand, the Mimic is from one of my favorite analog horror series ever, so I'm inclined to like him at least a little bit. Alright, so let's start off with where the Mimic is from. The Mimic originates from an analog horror series called Vita Carnis. This series is about a new form of life found on Earth, under the name Vita Carnis. They are also known as living meat, as I believe Vita Carnis is just Latin for living meat. Now, I'm not going to sit here and give you a whole explanation of Vita Carnis, because that would take forever, but all you really need to know is that the Mimic is a member of the Vita Carnis species. It is a tall, humanoid-like figure, and it is an expert hunter, specifically in hunting humans. Its stealth is unmatched, and it is resistant to most damage, including firearms. Now, the Mimic's main way of killing people isn't actually mimicking them, it's actually stealth, which is reflected pretty well in the playstyle of the Mimic in Pillar Chase. There's also a subspecies of mimics called the Elder Mimic, and while it's not technically a subspecies, it might as well be because they're so different. The Elder Mimic is an ascended form of the regular Mimic. It has a much darker skin tone, it has a completely white face, and it is much better at actually mimicking people. The more a Mimic eats, the closer they can resemble a human being. Some are even known to put clothes on in an attempt to blend into crowds. Now, while the Mimic in Pillar Chase can't do any of this, the Elder Mimic is available as a skin for the Mimic. Now, onto the Mimic's stats. He has 21 sprint speed, which is 1 less than Aoni, 100 stamina, pretty good stamina drain, and the lowest base damage in the game. Now, the thing about the Mimic is his base damage increases with every kill you get. Every kill you get increases his damage by 4, up to 30. Pairing this with the fact that his damage will be increased by 10 if someone's alone, you can do up to 40 damage per hit, but that's not all. If you pair this with one of his abilities, you can apply the bleed effect, which will do even more damage. I'm not sure on the exact amount of damage you can do with 40 damage and bleed, but I think it is somewhere near 80, which is just absolutely insane from one hit. But anyways, let's talk about his abilities. To start us out, we have Elder Ascension. This is arguably one of the best abilities in the game, because it gives you a massive speed boost, it almost completely mutes your footsteps, and it makes you damn near invisible. As if it wasn't already easy enough to out-stamina players with the Mimic's base kit, they then give him a speed boost and make him invisible, so he can out-stamina players even easier. Like, what? I don't even know. Oh, and another thing. The Mimic automatically makes any map you're on darker, so it's even harder to see him in Elder Ascension. If you don't have a flashlight, good luck surviving. Now, some people might say that the Mimic is very good at single target, but he might struggle to kill everyone. And I say that's bullshit, because he can kill everyone just fine. Literally my first 2 games ever playing Mimic, with a bunch of fairly high-level players in there, won both of them. I apologize to every MX main. In the last video, I said he was overpowered. This shit is broken. I can't describe it. Every time I have to play against this, I audibly sigh and roll my eyes because I know I'm not gonna survive 9 times out of 10. The only times you will survive against a Vita Mimic that knows what they're doing is if you're on a huge map, the Mimic saves you for last, and your teammates are actually good teammates and waste as much of the Mimic's time as possible. Because that is really the only thing you can do if a Mimic's targeting you. Might as well just be a good teammate and waste as much of their time as possible, because you're dead. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not impossible to win against Mimic, especially if they get a bad map, like Fazbear Frights or Drainage. Drainage is a great example of this, because it is so easy to loot Mimic on Drainage. Now, with all that being said, at the very least, Mimic is fun to play, albeit it is the worst possible experience for anyone you're playing against. I haven't even mentioned the second ability I just realized, so I'm going to talk about that. Now, this ability, it's not nearly as heinous as Elder Ascension. I don't think it's possible for a second ability to be that bad, but the way it works is kind of odd. I'm not sure on the exact specifics of it, but this ability will highlight players who are in your field of vision, which doesn't really make sense because it can highlight through walls. I don't really know. Now, apart from the fact that it highlights players, this ability will also apply a bleed status effect if you hit a highlighted player. Combining this with your max damage does insane damage. This is honestly a pretty fairly balanced ability. It's not too good, and it's not too bad. I think it's honestly perfect. But just combined with the rest of the Mimic's kit, it's so annoying. So in conclusion, Mimic is not brain dead broken, because he does require some thought process to actually win. That being said though, it is incredibly easy to win if you put in even a little effort.
Run! It's Godzilla! It looks like Godzilla, but due to international copyright laws, it's not. Still, we should run like it is Godzilla! Though it isn't.
Niloticus, or as I like to call him, Better Rosemary. Now, Niloticus is pretty similar to Rosemary in the sense that he has incredibly low stamina and incredibly high speed, but other than that, they're actually not that similar. Now, Niloticus is, despite what many people think, inspired by Shin Godzilla, not the man in the suit. Now, I don't really know anything about Godzilla, so I'm not going to go super in-depth on Niloticus, but from what I know, he is an OC, created by Blade Ninja. I would assume it has something to do with Project Kaiju, because I do believe Blade Ninja is also the owner of that game. Now, I'm reading from the wiki here, so this could be inaccurate, but apparently, Niloticus is a monster made in a nuclear power plant who escaped and is now cleansing the Earth of human life. So that is his backstory. Now for his stats, he has the fastest sprint speed in the game, that being 27.5. He has the second lowest base damage in the entire game, that being 20, and he has the lowest stamina in the game, at 38. Now, on paper, these stats probably sound horrendous, which, I'm not gonna lie, they kinda are, but his stamina regain speed is one of the fastest in the game, I believe, so the low stamina really isn't that big of a deal, because you can pretty easily catch up to survivors just abusing your speed. And his low damage can also be increased with one of his abilities, which I'll be talking about probably right now, because I don't got anything else to talk about stat-wise. Now, usually I do the abilities in order, but since this would make for a better transition, we're going to start with Irradiated Mist. Irradiated Mist will hold Niloticus in place for a second or two, and make him spray out a red mist. Anyone who is near this mist will be highlighted, and players who step into the mist will also be highlighted, and take increased damage from Niloticus. This damage buff adds 25 damage to any of Niloticus' attacks, including his second ability. This takes his M1 damage from 20 to 45, which is pretty good. Now onto his second ability, Godly Leap. Niloticus will jump forward and grab a player if he makes contact with them. This deals 25 damage, or 50 if you have an irradiated buff. Niloticus will also regain stamina during this animation, so it's great for chases, as you can do damage while regaining your stamina. Honestly, it's kind of just like a better too slow. However, this ability isn't all positive. You can't control where you're going when you're in the air, at least not to my knowledge, meaning you have to be pretty precise to actually hit it. The best way to do this is to just predict where the player is going to go, and then aim for where you think they're going. Now, unfortunately, that's about all I have to say for Niloticus, which is kind of upsetting, because I actually really enjoyed playing him. Springtrap. Now, I'm sure we all know who Springtrap is, but on the off chance that you don't, he's from a game series called Five Nights at Freddy's, and he serves as the main antagonist. Now, I'm not gonna go on a rundown of Five Nights at Freddy's lore. I'm sure 90% of the people watching this already know it. If you want to know more about this character, go watch one of the 8-hour video essays on FNAF. I'm not doing it. I'm just here to talk about why I absolutely fucking hate Springtrap in this game. To start with, he has the highest stamina of any monster in the game. He has 2 abilities that help him a lot in a chase, and he has all that, and yet he still sucks as a monster. Now you might be wondering, if he sucks so much, why do I hate him? Well, that's because he's both bad and good. He is really good at actually killing people. Like, if you're in a chase with a Springtrap, your odds of surviving are minimal. However, he can just not kill people fast enough to actually warrant being good. Like, if you're playing against a good player, you could end up sinking a whole minute into just chasing them for 1 kill. Springtrap is a good monster, he's just not efficient, and that's why I hate him. Springtrap also suffers from the same tunnel vision playstyle that Mimic suffers from, which makes me hate him even more. So, starting off with the stats, he has 18 sprint speed, which is tied for the lowest in the game, right next to Vapor. He has 120 stamina, which, as I mentioned earlier, is the highest of any monster in the game. He has pretty normal stamina drain, and he does 40 damage, which can be increased with one of his abilities. Speaking of his abilities, let's start talking about them. To start with, he has ventilation error. A large red circle will appear around Springtrap that only you can see, and if you catch anyone in that range, they will be blinded for a pretty long time, with their vision fading in and out, and it used to drain stamina as well, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't do that anymore. It also gives Springtrap a pretty considerable speed boost, and he can attack during the move. Overall, it is quite the strong ability, especially on darker maps. In my personal opinion, this is Springtrap's best move. It is incredibly good for the speed boost alone, and it also blinds people, which is just annoying to deal with. So if you're playing against people who don't know the layouts of the map well, you're probably going to end up killing them if you have this ability. The name Ventilation Error, as well as the blinding effect, is also a pretty obvious reference to FNAF 3's Ventilation Error that can occur randomly. Now his next ability is called Phantom Step. If you press 2, seriously? Springtrap will enter a state where he starts floating, he'll get a speed boost from his base speed all the way up to 24, which I believe is the same speed as the player. Springtrap will highlight every player on the map when in this state, as well as darkening his own screen. If you hit a player with this ability, they will have a status effect called Fearful applied to them. This will mark them on the map for you, as well as applying an insane damage buff for your attacks. This damage buff adds 35 extra damage, which is absolutely insane. Now, despite what you might think, this ability actually isn't all too great. It can be good for conserving your stamina in a chase, but the actual Fearful effect you'll almost never apply. It's quite hard to catch up to someone when you're the same speed as them, so 9 times out of 10, if you're in a chase, you probably won't actually get the Fearful effect. If you want to apply the effect, it's best to try and sneak up to someone and then use it, as that's probably the only time you're going to be able to do it. So, in conclusion, Springtrap could be a good monster, but his current kit is just not that great for him. Honestly, it's kind of upsetting to see a monster like Springtrap, who would be really cool, just be this bad. I hope he actually gets a good rework, and then, you know, maybe I won't hate him so much. Bonus footage! Alright guys, what's up? It is currently 2 AM. Roblox finally came back up after it went down, and we are playing Pillar Chase at 2 AM. I kinda wanna end my life, I'm not gonna lie. God, I need to kill myself. Okay, Vapor on Five Nights at Freddy. Oh, and yeah, also, for some reason, Roblox, like, reset all of my settings, and I don't know why. And also, yes, this is some of the rare times you'll see me playing Survivor in a video. I think Survivor is fun, honestly. I enjoy playing as Survivor, but there's just not much going on to commentate on. Well, actually there is, it's just a lot of people don't want to see Survivor gameplay, so. I almost interrupted that, and I was gonna get really mad. I was gonna get really mad if it interrupted my task. I hate when the jump scare does that, it's so annoying. What are your guys' opinions on perks in this game? I don't know why I'm asking that like I'm live streaming, like leave a comment or something, if this even goes in the video. Like, what are your guys' thoughts on perks? Honestly, they're kind of mid, I'm not gonna lie. Like, Runner is good, because it's just basically a free extra 15 stamina. And Clarity and Danger Vision are also pretty good, but other than those 3, they're all kind of useless. Is Niloticus even good? Like, from what I've seen of other people playing him, he's kind of just like if Rosemary had actually good abilities. That guy's hat is fucking sick, dude. That looks like a TF2 item. Please don't say it picked me. I didn't even fucking realize it was. Damn it. Dude, I swear it literally always picks me for Double Trouble. And then when I actually want it to, you know, not pick me, it's like, hey, heard you want to play Double Trouble. God damn. Springtrap busted? I know a lot of people say this game is like Dead by Daylight, and I think Springtrap is probably like the most like that. Like, he is a very Dead by Daylight-esque killer. Isn't he actually coming to Dead by Daylight too? Oh, I gotta catch up to this guy. Okay, I might have been a little too harsh on Springtrap, dude. He's kind of fun. I still hate playing him though, so. What the fuck? Damn, everyone's across the map. I'm not really like paying full attention right now because I'm trying to focus on talking at the same time. So. Wait, what the fuck? Why is this walk so fast? What the hell? Okay. Come here. Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. I see what people mean when they say you gotta put a lot of time into chases. Fucking steal my one kill that I'm getting this game. See, this guy's gonna be a nuisance to kill. Oh, come on. There's no way you saw that coming. Come on, man. Use Glitching Blitz or something. Okay. Springtrap, honestly, that was kind of fun. He's very fun to play, but he's not good. I don't know, something about him's fun. I don't know what it is. I'm a little upset that I got picked for Double Trouble.